So is Sheriff Jimmy LaFar and the police in the Adirondacks protect the watersheds from campers and hikers. The governor of the state and his brother and all of his ultra-rich friends and family, along with the president of the United States and his Mafia gang of friends and family, and Kushner and all the big donators to Donald Trump, they dump huge amounts of sewage into New York Harbor, Long Island Sound, and the Hudson River. Oh, and Lake Champlain and the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Great Lakes. Yeah, as Jimmy LaFar, the sheriff of Warren County, New York, and the police up there in old Warren County protect the watershed from campers and hikers, threatening to arrest them with trespass, and you can't use the public lands. They'll cite you for trespassing, drag you into court or into jail. They'll tell you to leave, you know. But the ultra wealthy people that buy the sheriff and buy the police in Warren County, they have their real estate investments like down in Albany and Cohoes and Troy and, you know, New York City, and they've got their big investment packages with people like Kushner and Trump and all them people that dump massive amounts of raw human sewage into the harbor in New York City, infecting and contaminating the environment of millions. So to Jimmy LaFar, boy, you're a good little lapdog, aren't you, Jimmy? They bought, oh boy, did they buy the right little chump to party him up and give him the big parties up there at the Grand Hotel there at the Sagamore, and they throw those big freaking fundraisers at the country clubs, don't they, Jimmy LaFar? It just goes to show you, ladies and gentlemen, that the same old story, you know, the people with some fiat helicopter money in their pockets, they own all the best politicians, right, Jimmy LaFar? I was reading that story in the Post-Star, and I was thinking to myself, you know, I wonder where the Post-Star thinks their paper comes from and how much pollution that causes. Maybe they need to arrest the producers of the paper and ink that the Post-Star uses for massive pollution. What do you think about that, Michael Goot and Ken Kingsley? You jackasses bring in railroad cars full of paper that cause more rotten pollution in waterways and rivers, and you have the freaking audacity to make hikers and campers on the public lands out to be some kind of scoundrels and enemies of the state because they might contaminate the drinking water supplies of Glens Falls. What about all that sewage leachate being dumped in Lake George, and what about all that sewage that Bill Blaze and the village of Lake George have been dumping in Lake George for years? How about that, Jimmy LaFar? Why don't you go arrest the mayor of Lake George Village and the town of Lake George for dumping all that sewage into the drinking water supply called Lake George? You know, an awful lot of people drink Lake George water, Jimmy LaFar. So to the Glens Falls Post-Star and to Andy Cuomo and Donald Trump, why don't you all go arrest all your pals for dumping huge amounts of sewage from their casinos and their hotels and their luxury apartment buildings all over New York City? Why don't you go arrest them for, you know, destroying the public water supplies and poisoning and contaminating all those fish, because everybody knows you can't eat fish out of the Hudson River. Catch of the day is not a featured item in New York State along the Hudson River, because the Hudson River is nothing more than a great big sewer. Jimmy LaFar, sheriff of Warren County, New York, why don't you go arrest the mayor of Glens Falls and the city councilman of Glens Falls for dumping all that sewage into the Hudson River, Jimmy LaFar, sheriff of Warren County, New York? And the Post-Star, you are the most intellectually dishonest slime bags I've ever witnessed in my life. I would swear that you people are the purveyors of MK Ultra, using your news media drone there, your post-star, to just print and distribute drivel to the people of northern New York. Yeah, I mean, Glens Falls and all their little chemical companies and paper companies and dry cleaners and cement companies and everything else, they in the city and the county and, I don't know, I guess the town of Queensbury, they all dump their sewage into the Hudson River. Why don't you go arrest them, Jimmy LaFar, sheriff of Warren County, New York? I'd never seen a bunch of shit my whole life until I read that article about arresting trespassers for going for a hike around the public watershed there around Glens Falls, Halfway Brook. You know, as a kid, I grew up on Halfway Brook. Me and my friends used to go frogging out there and fishing, and we go out there rabbit hunting, and we learned how to set snares, and we did all kinds of things up there around the watershed and the reservoir, up at the old reservoir north of town there, northwest of town. So to Jimmy LaFar, you're a disgrace, Jim LaFar, an absolute disgrace, and the police and the game wardens and all these other people that are trespassing people for daring to use the public property, they ought to run you people out of the North Country on a rail after they tar and feather you. What you're doing is sickening, Jimmy LaFar, sheriff of Warren County, and all your deputies that take any orders from you. I mean, you talk about a sad, sad, sad day in America. And keep it up, Jimmy LaFar. You're cooking your own goose. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And as always, hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha, we're coming back.